This is the first of 3 videos looking at monopolistic competition. In this first one, we'll be looking at what monopolistic competition is and how it differs from perfect competition and monopoly. So we're assuming that you've already covered those and have some knowledge of what those two market structures are like. And we'll be starting off here with looking at some terms which are important to all of the market structures you're learning and have a particular focus on monopolistic competition. We'll be using them a lot here. So in a moment, I'm going to give you 1 minute to match the list of terms on the left-hand side of the slide with the definitions on the right-hand side of the slide. So I will now start this, and you have 60 seconds to do the matching task here.
3, 2, 1.
There you go, time's up. Now, of course, if you didn't quite finish it, you can actually stop the video at this point and restart it, and then I will show you what the correct answers, the correct definitions are for each of the terms. So here you are. There are those terms again on the on the left-hand side, and now matched with their correct definition on the right. Stop the video, take a moment to look through and make sure that you got all of those correct. Okay, so now let's start looking at monopolistic competition, and I'm going to start out with a warning here. It's a banana skin. It's an area in which students often do slip up because, well, it's a term that sounds very much as if it has to do with monopoly, but it's not in any way the same as a monopoly market structure. So there is a tendency amongst a lot of students, when they're talking or writing about monopoly business, they tend often to use the word monopolistic when they're describing the behaviour of the firm in terms of their pricing or their output or the way that they compete. But unfortunately, that is wrong. So please don't use this term monopolistic when you're talking about monopoly behaviour, because they're very different. So let's just take that a little bit further and see if you can remember the key characteristics of a monopoly. Can you write down up to 4 of the features which characterise a monopoly market structure? Stop the video for a moment, see if you can write those down either on a worksheet or on a separate piece of paper, and then restart when you're ready. And here they are. These are the 4 characteristics that we presented in an earlier lesson on monopoly market structures. So we start with very high barriers to entry, and then we say there is one dominant firm which has a high market share in the market, in the industry. It may be that there are other businesses, other firms there as well, but there is one particular firm which is dominating the whole market, and that the firms in the market are price makers. Now let's look at the key characteristics of monopolistic competition. So, as I said, it's a different market structure. It has a large number of buyers and sellers, each acting independently of each other. There's perfect knowledge in the market, and the firms act as profit maximizers. And there are low barriers to entry and exit. So it should be clear that it's nothing like a monopoly. But you might also be thinking, well, hang on, this sounds rather like something I've already covered. It sounds like perfect competition. But there is something which makes it quite different from that. because the firms are producing a differentiated product. It's not a homogeneous product with no difference between the product of one firm and another. In this case, we have a differentiated product. So here's, if you like, the sort of summarized definition of monopolistic competition, which you should note down. It's a market structure where there are a large number of small firms which produce differentiated, i.e. non-homogeneous products, and where there are low barriers to entry or exit. And if you look at the bottom of the slide there at the spectrum of competition, you can see that monopolistic competition is different from perfect competition and monopoly, but more towards the perfect competition end of the spectrum. There is one more crucial difference between monopolistic competition and perfect competition. You might remember that in the case of perfect competition, it's very difficult to think of a genuine example of real perfect competition in the real economy. But monopolistic competition is different and does exist, and we do see it all around us. So I'd like you to take a couple of minutes, think about your local high street, wherever you live, and some examples of businesses which you think might fit that definition, those characteristics of monopolistic competition that we've just been through. Stop the video for a couple of minutes while you're doing that and restart when you're ready. And here are our examples. We've just got 5 examples for you here. You might have thought of others. Coffee shops. If you think of the average high street, there are lots of different places you could get a coffee from. It could be from Starbucks, from Costa, Cafe Nero, the sort of big competitors, or it could be coffee that McDonald's are producing, or another sort of fast food store, or it could be an independent coffee shop. But there are probably easily 7 or 8 in just a small town that are competing with each other. Likewise, hairdressers. Most high streets have got several different hairdressers. There will be some which are sort of ladies' hairdressers, some that are men's, barbers' shops, some which are unisex, others which have got maybe nail bars added onto them, but they'll all be basically hairdressers. Pizza delivery businesses. You tend to have several of them competing in the same town. Likewise, sandwich bars, they're all producing a similar but slightly different product. And corner grocery stores, again, perhaps not in small towns, but certainly in the larger towns around the country, corner grocery stores which will be selling basically the same goods as each other, but with some slight differentiation in their range, in the level of service, and so on. You might have other examples. If you're not sure whether one of the industries that you thought of is genuinely an example of monopolistic competition, ask your teacher for their advice. So finally, in this video, we're just going to check the exact meaning of a differentiated product. So they're products which have some unique qualities, and that allows firms to charge a different price to reflect the qualities of their own product or service. But there are similarities between the products and services of each competitor. They're price makers because of the unique qualities, and so they have a downward sloping demand curve or average revenue curve, because a lower price will bring greater demand, an extension in demand for their products. But there are lots of competitors. They're producing relatively close substitutes, and that means their market power is relatively weak because consumers can substitute one for another fairly easily. So their price elasticity of demand is relatively elastic. You'll remember one of the features of elastic PED is where there are close substitutes available. So finally, if the firm can do something using non-price competition to increase brand loyalty for their goods, then they can make their demand less price elastic, more price inelastic, and that means that their market power will increase. So that's the end of our first lesson, first video in the lesson on monopolistic competition. In the next one, we'll be looking at how we can draw costs and revenues and profit graphs for this market structure.